Today, we have the pleasure of speaking to a versatile and intriguing author whose literary journey has taken a fascinating turn. Originally known for his works in extreme horror, our guest has seamlessly transitioned into, am I going to believe this? But the realms of erotic and romantic thrillers. So he went from Lovecraft, like horror, real horror, to romantic, erotic, romantic books. Now, hailing from the picturesque landscapes of Southwest Virginia, he has crafted 14 captivating titles. Yes, he's got 14 books, including Crimson Greetings, Taker, Wild Demon's Kiss, and I Love You No Less. So notably, his novel Taker has not only earned acclaim in its original form, but has also made its way onto the silver screen. Yes, cinema as a gripping screenplay. I mean, he hasn't become a film yet, but soon we will, and we'll hear from him in regards to this. Now, joining us, the talented author Andret Sanders. We will explore his evolution in writing, delve into the themes of his romantic thrillers, and learn about his unique process of adapting his novels into screenplays. And of course, we want to know how come he transitioned from horror to romance. So without further ado, let us welcome Andres Sanders to Megaphony.
Hello.
Nice to have you. So can you share a bit more about your background and how you transitioned from writing extreme horror to becoming an erotic and romantic thriller author?
Well, yeah, I kind of grew up in the horror scene, like watching horror movies since I was a child. Thanks to my mother for, getting me into that. And then creativity, the writing, I picked up on that in kindergarten in grade school. So once I did that, I was writing horror stories since I was a wee little thing. And through high school, that's all I did. I was just, dedicated to the horror genre. And I wrote the extreme. My last extreme horror was a short story. And it was a man who took vengeance on a family with a tire iron. So you can imagine how far, someone can go with a tire iron. And I had made changes in my personal life to become better. And when I did that, I also applied that to my creativity and just sort of wanted to find out what more was out there. And I just kind of went the route of romantic thrillers.
Oh yeah, so then what made you go then to romantic thrillers?
That one's hard to explain because I just got the idea for one. When I decided to leave horror, I was like, I just want to try something different. I had thought about going full blown romance, but then to me, I was like, nah, it's a little boring. So having that horror background, I threw the elements of thriller in there to make it more interesting for me as a writer. And that's just kind of how it all panned out.
Now, just so has your writing style also evolved? Because you went when you transitioned, did it evolve? And are there specific reasons or experiences that led to this transition? Like I said, it's hard to explain, but is there a moment in your life? Can you pinpoint a moment in your life where you're like, you know what, something happened perhaps that made you change?
Well, actually, sobriety. I drank for 20 years, so I was addicted to alcohol, and I had a lot of personal anger and stuff like that. And when I quit drinking, it was a few months after that, I was just my mind redeveloped, into a new direction. And all of my personal anger and all that stuff, I got rid of it. And then as far as the creativity, just that desire to write horror was no longer there. Like I had no, pent up aggression to let out in a, creative outlet. So once I got rid of all that and, bettered my mindset, it was easy to steer in a new direction.
Okay, so now let's talk about the adaptation to screenplay, because you mentioned that the title Taker was adapted into a screenplay. So can you tell us about the process of adapting your novel into a screenplay?
Yeah, actually, that just happened by chance with a fellow writer that I was friends with on Facebook. And he had written a screenplay for one of his novels, and it actually was made into a movie, like not long after he did the screenplay. And then he read Taker, and he was like, I want to do the screenplay for this. And I was like, all right. So he had wrote it. Took him maybe 4 months, and then he had shot me an email with the screenplay, and I read it. I approved it, and then he copyrighted it, and now it just sits in the big pile of other scripts just waiting to be made.
Okay, so have you already considered a way to fund a place that will be interested, or a channel that be interested in buying Taker? Perhaps Hallmark, one of those media companies that would be interested in buying your screenplay? Do you have any spoilers? Any place that will be interested in mind?
Well, personally, I haven't researched that. I'll leave it all to him since he had adapted the screenplay. I just stick with the writing. Like I got one project right after another, so I just try to keep up with my imagination.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's the best thing to do. Are you open then to the idea of perhaps adapting more of your works into screenplays?
I am. I would like to see Objection go that route. I think it would be easier to do. And I don't think it would have a very high budget since it's filmed in like a mountainous setting in the backwoods. And it only has like the main characters are like, it's pretty much two main characters throughout. So I think the budget, it's affordable.
Yeah. Speaking of characters, as you've mentioned some of them, like how do you approach creating these personalities for your romantic thrillers? And are there any characters that you feel would particularly connect, or some things, a character that you feel particularly more connected to in a certain level?
Well, it's interesting because
Proud of?
the characters kind of just like come to me. Like I've constantly got stuff going on in my head, and I get the idea, and it's like I have the characters, like I can just see them so vividly in my mind. So they pretty much tell me the story. And a character that I have grown fond of is Shay Rivera from Objection, because when I created her, and the fact that it was very intimate with her, with the romance that I was having involved within the book, and just explaining her mindset, getting into her emotions, I became very close with her, more so than any of the characters from my horror works.
Yeah, and then can you walk us through your writing process, and especially just say aspiring writers, aspiring novelists? They'd be interested to know. Would you mind sharing your writing process, especially when you're creating stories that involve both erotic and thriller elements?
Yeah, so my writing process pretty much just consists of writing on a tablet. I work a job where it's 12-hour shifts, so every time that I get a break, I pull that tablet out and just go with what I've thought in between my break schedule. And when I get home late in the evenings, like I'll sit down around 7 p.m. and I'll normally write for about an hour before I go to bed. And then on my days off, like I'll write all day long. It's just the drive to want to is the problem. You have to really, when it comes to writing, you have to be very dedicated to the art, because you can easily, like, there are distractions like television, music, anything can distract you. You just have to like shut down the reality around you and think into your, your own little world. And as far as like the aspiring authors and the other authors out there, like when it comes to like, don't let a specific genre define you. If you get an idea to like, go another route, go with it, because you don't know what you're going to produce. You're, creating something out of nothing, and it all starts up here. And that was like with Objection. Never in my life did I think that I would write a romantic thriller. Like, I had no desire years ago. And then when I got the idea and, started writing it, for me personally, I think it's the best one I've written out of all of my projects. And it has like pretty much set me my foundation to stay in the romantic thriller genre.
And when did you write your first one?
My Objection, I had written last year. My
first your first ever, because you said a few years ago you would never imagine that you'd be able to write so many novels and so many books. So when did you write your first one?
My first novel I'd actually wrote when I was 18 years old. However, I never published it. And my first publication didn't come until 2015. I had published 2 novels that year, and the first one was called Crimson Greetings. It was a revenge-style serial murder. And then Taker followed that one.
And what audience do you think will resonate more with your stories? And also, have you got feedback from readers? Like, did they write to you? Do they relate to your stories? Have you established a relationship with the readers?
Well, for the audience, I believe the romantic thrillers are maybe geared more towards the female audience, but they're not like, Harlequin romance. So it can be enjoyed by the male audience. And I have gotten good feedback. I've gotten more feedback, on Objection than I have any of my other works. And a lot of people have like compared my style to Stephen King, but I like, the individuality, being myself. So I'm always experimenting with various writing styles.
Yes, and within this experimentation, are there any upcoming projects, new releases? I don't know, spoilers?
I am working on one now that I'm halfway through. It's called Underdose, which is the opposite of overdose. And it's about 2 drug addiction counselors. They're best friends, but my male character, he has a thing for my female character. And her name is Brooke Hansley. And the story is mainly focused on her mentality. She is actually in love with a former addict who has since recovered. But there's a lot of things that she had actually dated him like a year prior. And a spoiler to that story is that she had got an abortion and didn't tell him about it, because her father is actually a local, runs a local prison. He's the warden, and he would never, want her, around that deadbeat kind of guy. So she's came back home to visit and runs into him, by chance. And then her feelings, everything comes, flooding back to her when she has suppressed it for a year. And where they get together and things get a little heated, and it ends up leading to a double homicide.
Yeah. So, are your books translated into other languages too?
That I'm not exactly sure. I know they're available on Amazon for every country has it listed. I don't know how Amazon does that. They automatically come in the English language, or how that works.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're going to wrap up, but I want to remind the viewers to find you on Amazon, because it was easy to find you, and we were pretty interested in the many titles you have, because I myself and Leticia, the co-host of the show, we're both into horror, and we're both into thrillers. So I mean, and so is our audience, because we're constantly suggesting in our shows thrillers. So you folks who like thrillers, although we're mostly we mostly enjoy films. You know, we're not necessarily into books, but
Yeah.
filmmakers out there, you know, in Brazil, then you could contact. So then you could contact Andre, so that you know you guys could work out the possibility of turning his many novels into screenplays, just like he has. This is just like he has made the title Taker possible. So, Andre, do you have anything you'd like to add to this conversation?
I'll just tell all the aspiring authors out there, don't get up, pursue. Don't let anyone tell you, you can't do this. You do have to promote. You have to do that more so than writing once you have finished the project. And, whether you're being independent or whatever route you're going, promoting is like the main thing. It's up to you.
And
It's up
yes,
to you to get yourself out there.
yes, like I said, it's up to them, and it's also, as you said, as you mentioned earlier, people shouldn't stick to one genre, to one style, right? Because
Correct.
I like that fact. You know, people shouldn't stick to one style.
Yeah, because if you stick to one style, you're basically going to get labeled and people are going to view you a certain way. But if you, branch out into other genres and, you experiment, no one, they really never know what you're thinking at any given time because you're moving around. You're not just like sticking to like blood and guts. You could be writing, the story about, two high school lovebirds eventually getting married and happily ever after. So it's interesting to just move around and never stay in one particular area.
Okay, so folks, the way to find his books, you just go to Amazon and just search for Andres Sanders. Andres Sanders, simply Andre, like you would say Andre in Portuguese. Sanders, simple as that. Just find him on Amazon, and you'll find all of his books, all of his 14 titles. Andre, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.